I need you to listen carefully to this story, because what happened inside one American family didn't just expose a secret, it completely changed the meaning of trust for everyone involved. The woman at the center of it was Emily Carter, 35 years old, living in Chicago, Illinois, married to a calm, disciplined man named Jason Carter, someone who believed peace in a home was more important than winning arguments, and they had a 4-year-old daughter named Olivia Carter, a bright, innocent child with striking red curly hair that made her impossible to ignore. But what looked like a normal happy family on the outside was slowly being pulled into something much darker from the inside, all because of one person, Jason's mother, Margaret Carter, a woman from Boston, Massachusetts, who had spent her entire life observing people more than understanding them, questioning more than trusting, and quietly collecting doubts instead of building relationships. And at first Emily ignored it, because nothing was openly wrong, just small moments, small looks, small comments like, "Interesting. She doesn't look like anyone in our family," or, "That hair color is unusual," things that sound harmless in the moment but start building suspicion over time. And what Emily didn't know yet was that those small comments were not random, they were preparation. Months passed, and the tension slowly grew in silence, because Margaret never accused directly, she only planted questions, and those questions started spreading inside the family like invisible pressure, until one day Emily received a phone call from a DNA testing company in New York, and what they told her changed everything. They said a genetic sample for Olivia had been submitted by Margaret Carter without parental consent, and in that moment Emily realized this was no longer family concern, this was control crossing a line it should never cross, so she immediately stopped the process, secured the report, and did something most people wouldn't do in anger. She stayed silent, because she understood that reacting too early could destroy her position, and instead she began watching carefully, and what she discovered next was something she never expected. Margaret was planning a public reveal at a family dinner in Boston, where she would present DNA results in front of everyone, believing she had proof that would expose Emily completely, but what Margaret didn't know was that Emily had already gone deeper into the system, and through digital traces and genetic matching databases, she found something strange. A man named Ethan Brooks, living in Seattle, Washington, listed as a close biological match to Olivia, and that single name changed everything, because it meant this wasn't just about suspicion anymore, it was about hidden history, and when Emily traced it further, she discovered something buried for over 30 years. Margaret herself had given birth to a child before her marriage, a child she had secretly given up for adoption, never telling her husband Robert Carter, never telling her son Jason, and suddenly everything made sense, because the obsession with Olivia's hair, the constant questioning, the emotional pressure, it wasn't about Emily at all, it was about Margaret's fear that her own past might resurface through the very system she was trying to use against someone else. Then came the night of the dinner. The entire family gathered in Boston, the house full, the table perfectly set, conversations flowing normally on the surface, but underneath it there was tension no one could name, and after dinner, Margaret stood up holding a sealed manila envelope, her voice calm, controlled, almost rehearsed, and she said, "Jason, you need to see this," and as Jason opened it, the room slowly went silent, and he read the results without saying a word, and when he finally spoke, his voice was steady but heavy. As he said, "She is my daughter," referring to Olivia, and for a moment Margaret almost believed she had won, but that moment didn't last long, because Emily calmly stood up and said something no one expected. She revealed that the test had been done without consent, making it invalid, and then she asked Jason to turn to the last page, and when he did, everything changed again, because there was another name listed there. Ethan Brooks, Seattle, and confusion hit the room instantly. Jason turned to his mother and asked one simple question, "Who is he?" But Margaret didn't answer, because for the first time in her life, silence was louder than control, and slowly, piece by piece, the truth came out in front of everyone, that she had a child before marriage, a secret she buried for decades, and in trying to expose Emily, she had unknowingly exposed herself. Robert Carter sat in silence, realizing the life he thought he knew wasn't complete. Jason stood frozen between loyalty and truth, and Margaret, who had spent years controlling perception, finally lost control of everything in one single night, and what Emily told me afterward stayed with me forever. She said she didn't feel victory, she felt clarity, because truth doesn't arrive like a celebration, it arrives like something that was always there but finally became visible, and after that night, everything in that family changed permanently, boundaries were set, trust had to be rebuilt slowly, and while Margaret wasn't completely removed from their lives, she could no longer act on suspicion or control others the same way again. And in the end Emily said something that defines the entire story. People think they are powerful when they expose others, but they forget that truth doesn't belong to anyone, and when its time comes, it reveals everything exactly as it is meant to be revealed.